what is going to happen after COVID to Disney? Disney as a company, Disney as a theme park, cruise line, and everything else.
All that and more on this episode of My Disney Addiction Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Hey, guys. Before we do anything or talk about anything, please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on the video below because that helps out this channel a lot. So just saying thank you very much for doing that quick subscribe button. You can choose to get notified on a few of our videos, all of our videos, or none. Either way, subscribing really helps out this channel.
Yep, and ring that bell so you know whenever we drop new content.
That's what I just said.
I like repeating things a different way.
I
so
just
people
said that.
Can,
I just said that.
Can see where we're coming from.
All right, you guys. So,
without further ado, we have your 1000th happy hunt. Your ghost host himself, Chris.
What's up? What up? And we have Disney Detective.
There we go. Look at that. The perfect hype, man. I love it. I love it. That's right, folks. I'm your magical source on everything Disney.
There you go. There you go. Guys, we have the Mickey Mouse Cup.
Monsters, Inc. Cup.
And we got some new. Can barely see them.
Yeah, but these are Disney pass holder coasters.
Ooh, snap.
I got this about 2 years ago when I went to the Food and Wine Festival. Rest in peace, 2020.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so got this as a nice little annual pass holder gift, and just broke it out of the box today. Figured we'd live large and we'd have some drinks while we do this podcast. Of course, mine's water.
Yep.
Not as fun as Chris over there.
I got Dr. Pepper as usual, guys. Come on, let's be honest. Everybody who knows me knows that I love Dr. Pepper. It's no joke up in here. So we're gonna jump right into it today, folks. Let's talk about what's gonna happen to Disney after. This is all gonna be our speculations, our opinions,
what we think's gonna go. Please let us know your thoughts too. We'd love to hear you.
So some of the stuff is we're gonna be basing this kind of off some of the recent news that's come out, things like that.
Developments.
But kind of looking into the future, what do we think? So let's start off with the biggest news that's come out recently. If you guys haven't heard, 28,000 cast members have been released, terminated, let go, been given a pass to pursue other career dreams.
Yes.
Whatever the case may be.
Devastating news. Never thought that this would happen. And that amount is just coming, like, just out of Disney World, right?
No, it's a combination.
Or is it together of Disneyland and Walt Disney World? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Disneyland, Disney World. I mean, I think it's like across the company, a lot of different. Okay. But mainly it's the theme parks we're talking about. I mean, Disney World and Disneyland, some of the biggest employers. I mean, Disney World is one of the biggest employers in the entire world.
I know. And to think of it too, I always like telling this fact to people. Walt Disney World, or the Disney company itself, they are the number 2 purchaser of pyrotechnics behind the U.S. military.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, haven't you ever thought of like, wow, Disney does fireworks multiple times a day?
Multiple times
Every
a
day.
However many days a year.
Yeah.
Disneyland, Disney World, Tokyo Disney, Disney Seas.
All the other parks, yeah.
All the parks, the cruise lines. Like, there's a lot of pyrotechnics.
There's money in pyrotechnics, folks.
Yeah.
Disney will be it.
So, yeah, Greg. So what do you think about that? Like 28,000 cast members. I mean, that's pretty hard to believe. I mean,
it is. I sort of have a different, I guess, sense about it, just because I have a couple of friends who are cast members at Disney.
Yep.
In varying locations, but they've been put through the ringer. It's been a roller coaster since COVID struck, and Disney decided to actually close down their parks in March. Like, I never thought that would ever happen, but
I think there was a short time Disney did that after 9/11. I think it was like for like a week.
Did they? Okay.
After 9/11.
Sure.
I think. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
But
one of the things, though, is kind of insane to think about is that Disney closed the parks and they put people on furlough starting right afterwards. Now, other companies, they let people go right away because they knew it would be a huge thing. Now, Disney, they did do the furlough thing for months and months and months, and now,
right,
now they decided, like, we have to let people go.
And this is more of like closing in on being a permanent thing, where it's like, this is the way of life now for theme parks, for entertainment.
I mean, because it's one of those.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm going to give Disney their dues. I mean, they put people on furlough and hoping that things would change.
Right,
and
they've done their best in this unprecedented time.
And so, I mean, things just had to come, and it was like, I get it. Disney's a business. They're not a nonprofit. They're not here to just give things away for free. I mean, that's a huge company.
Right.
I mean, 28,000 people, salaries, and regardless of what you feel about the amount of money that is, you got salaries, benefits, being able to have, annual passes for you. I mean, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where it's like, I get it. It sucks, but Disney is a business at the end of the day.
Right. And, I think they've been doing like a good job just trying to play it day by day. But clearly massive restructuring was in the cards, and it's going to continue to happen. Like, for a fact, I was supposed to be in Walt Disney World this week. Yep. So
I was supposed to be in Disney World back in September.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, well, we didn't cancel it because of COVID. It was more of a family issue, but
we did because of COVID.
Right. Yeah. But we rescheduled it for January. So hopefully in like these 3 short months, maybe some changes will happen, because I know that currently right now they're limiting your park hopping nature. So it's like you go to 1 park a day.
So you have to, what Greg's saying is, when you sign up for a Disney trip, what you have to do is you have to choose a park, and that's your park for the day. There is no Disney hopping, like park hopping right now.
Right.
So when you choose a park, you have to be in that park the whole day, which essentially amounts to you're buying 1-day passes for your whole trip.
Pretty much. Yeah, because I remember when they released that news and we were getting ready to pick our park for our week, the site crashed. So many people were on it, when they opened up the metaphorical gates, and it was just a madhouse. Like we couldn't get our first picks, and we were a part of the annual pass holder group, so like we got earlier access.
I was going to say you couldn't get your ADRs.
No.
But you guys don't ever do ADRs.
No, we
don't.
Do
you know what an ADR is?
No, I have no idea. I was just
Advanced
saying,
dining reservation.
Okay.
Because you guys don't do sit down dining.
Because my family's boring and they decide to do quick service instead of.
Hey, there are good quick services.
There are, yes.
Okay,
but
let's stay on track.
Right.
We got a lot to get through.
Foodies, it's really hard to not talk about food. But anyway, it was a very weird time. And I was really bummed. Like, they're limiting me to 1 park, because usually when I go, we go to at least 3 parks a day. And some of the best days I've had was when I hit all 4 parks. Granted, I slept like a baby that night. It was the best sleeps of my life. I was so exhausted.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a definitely new experience as a guest when you go there. So I'm wondering if they'll change anything between now and when I go in January, to see maybe they'll loosen up their rules on how many parks you can visit a day. I don't know. We'll see. Well, only time will tell.
So, I mean, obviously we talked about cast members being let go. I mean, that's a tragedy right now, because a lot of people, like, they move to a Disney park, and like some people, like, they retire and they just go to work for Disney for just benefits and being able to go to the parks.
Right.
Other people, like, this is one of their stepping stones, the Disney College program. You have a bunch of things like that. So, I mean, that's a real bummer. There's a ton of, if you go on Facebook, you go online, there's a ton of places that are trying to help people who have those things. If you guys, one of the recommendations is, I don't know all the information, but if you go to the Diz Unplugged, which is another podcast travel agency, like the Dreams Unlimited Travel. That's the agency, and then the Diz Unplugged is their podcast network with Pete Warner, and they work really well to help funnel people to ways to help cast members and things like that. So I would go to them. I'd go to WDW Radio with Lou Mangello, guys like that. There's tons of other podcasts out there trying to get the news out. There are ways to help cast members that are really struggling, because in some cases, like, this was their life. And yeah, it's a tough hit for sure. And I'm not saying that there aren't other people in the world that have been affected by COVID. They clearly are. As a Disney show, we're just trying to bring light to the fact that Disney cast members were affected by this. And if there are ways you can help, definitely, especially with the holidays coming up, it's tough. Real tough.
It really is. I know. And circling back to what you mentioned, how do you see Disney combating the potential for maybe future diseases or trying to limit the spread in the amount of cast members that they're going to have in the parks? Do you think that they'll bring more cast members back? Do you think they'll do more rehiring? Or do you think that they'll really just try to do bare bones, saying, okay, how...
Okay, we'll get to that in a second, because I think that's going to be the big wrap-up question.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, that's going to be the big wrap-up question.
Gotcha. So maybe I was too...
Jumping the gun there. So let's talk about something else. Is like, one of the things that we also know right now is that Disney, Orlando has given Disney World, because they opened up 3 months ago with 25% capacity.
Right.
And they were testing the waters there, and everybody was like, oh, let's see what's going to happen. Are COVID cases going to rise? As of right now, as far as I know, I haven't heard a mass breakout of any other COVID cases going on down there.
No.
But Orlando has given Disney World full reign that they can open up to 100% capacity now. Now, Disney has chosen to stay at 25%. If that's the safe thing, we'll see what obviously that's going to be the safer option. If that's going to be the best choice for now, we'll see what happens down the road. But Disney can choose to do that. California is flat out making it, the governor of California is making it almost insanely hard. Like, unless everybody, brings, 25,000 pounds of gold with them, they're not allowed to open up.
Or they just come in their own, self-contained little bubble.
No, not even that. It's, literally... you have to have a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse at the same time.
and pigs fly,
yes.
And money grows on trees, and
at the same time. On that day, when all those things totally realign, kind of like when Hercules, all the planets align, on that day you can open up. So, even...
Release the Titans.
Yeah, even Josh D'Amaro, essentially was saying, hey... we want to, but the governor's kind of making this really hard. And then the governor came back and said, well, you can. And then that's what I was saying. He put all these restrictions on things to the point where it was ridiculous, and then Bob Iger actually, he kind of stepped away from a position where he kind of, interacted with, the California governor and things like that, and stepped back and essentially was saying you are making this insanely difficult and I don't want to be a part of this anymore now.
Isn't that crazy how different, it's two opposite sides of the spectrum and also of the nation?
Yeah.
Physically, distance-wise. Walt Disney World spans over countless square miles.
Yep.
And just immense part of Orlando, Florida. And then you have Disneyland in the small part of Anaheim.
Yeah.
And it's so weird just to think, it's ironic, you think that they would be more open to having a smaller contained Disneyland open up.
Yep.
And then sort of keep a more watchful eye on Disney World. Yeah. But it's the complete opposite. Again, it's just, about the legislator, about who's, running the state, all this stuff. Of course, we don't really know exactly how bad it might get if we were to just, like you mentioned, just open it up 100% capacity. And I don't think we will get to that percentage for still a while.
Yeah. I think Disney might, or whenever they do, they might go 25%, 35%, 45%, and slowly see how can we handle this kind of capacity with these things. So then we also have that. We have talks now also, if you guys haven't known, talks about Disney Cruise Line potentially opening back up now. Now the question is, actually there's been a thing where essentially that industry has gone to the vice president and been hey, we want to do this, we're going to take different precautions, we're going to do all this stuff. And essentially, Pence is going to be talking to Trump and bringing that to him, essentially. But there's movements on that. Then the question is for Disney Cruise Line, what's the capacity going to be? Are they going to stick with what Disney World is doing? Because once again, Disney World, if you don't want to go anywhere, you can go back to your room. Now, granted, you can do that on a cruise ship, but there's nowhere to go. You're contained to a ship.
Your room is the boat. Your boat's the room. It's just...
Yeah.
You are self-contained to the extreme. So
I think if they do it, it might be a 25% capacity.
That'll be
at most
so
50%.
Interesting, because I've been on 4 Disney cruises. Shout out to Disney Dream, and I forget what the maximum capacity was. Easily thousands, but it didn't feel like that just because it was. They did a great job at creating a boat to where it's it's spaced out, and it'd be really interesting to just go on a cruise that's only 25% capacity. It would feel almost this is our downtime, it's only employees.
Yeah. Well, and
it just feels really weird.
So that's one thing. Let's also talk about something else so I'm speeding through some of the quick detail things because I want to get into perspective at the end, and that's I think we're where most of our discussion is going to be.
Yeah. Right.
So one of the other things is that was big news, and this kind of happened a while ago, maybe like a month or two ago. But if you guys remember, Disney fans, when Mulan skipped theaters and went straight to streaming.
Yes.
And we were just talking about another movie, which is Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah, they're going straight to streaming. They're not totally skipping movie theaters.
Yeah. Well, and then you have, so then there's these things going on right now with what's going to happen to movie theaters.
Yeah.
Because movie theaters are hurting right now.
I know. And, will the only saving grace be nostalgic factors? Oh, hey, it'll be nice to get out of the house, go out and do something, have a nice, bite of popcorn on the big screen. Will that be the only saving grace for movie theaters now? Will they try to market it that way? Or, again, will we start to see more of an open concept like drive-ins? Because to sort of, start the movie theater experience up again, especially this year, a lot of movie theaters around our area have decided to do
drive-ins.
Drive-ins, yeah. And I've never been to one yet. Of course, it does harken back to the 50s, which is a cool time period. But I wonder if that's going to be a thing. But when you live in a state like Wisconsin, where it gets cold, and it's cold for 6, 7, 8 months out of the year, is that really conducive? Or what
8
else?
8 months out of the year.
Ice Age.
Okay.
Ice Age.
But
no, I said 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, that's going to be
round
huge.
Down.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge question, because I think for us as fans, part of the fun, we were kind of talking about this before we started shooting, was what would have happened if Endgame, instead of coming out in 2019, came out in 2020? Would they have been able to, because if they didn't have the box office success and they went straight to movies, would they have made as much money?
Right. I don't think
because they staked everything on Infinity War and Endgame.
You're right. It was the biggest cliffhanger too.
Yeah.
Of Infinity War. So it's of course people are going to want to see it. I think it would still have made a lot of money, but
how though?
Exactly.
Because everybody wants to see it in the theater because it didn't come out on Blu-ray or stream. It didn't come out on Blu-ray until at least 6-7 months afterwards.
Right. Exactly.
And then it didn't come out on the streaming services until another 2 or 3 months after that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's looking at how our big, I don't want to say multi-billion, but
big budget.
Yeah, because I don't want to, because it's hard to compare things to Harry Potter, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, because those are those things that huge series that everybody's looking forward to. And we're not talking about Game of Thrones or things like that, which are specifically based towards TV and potential streaming. How do you have a big multi-series movie plot that gets a lot of money from the box office if you stream it? Because now you're relying on people to buy, and this is what happened with Mulan. I think a lot of people, Disney was counting on the fact that people would want to see Mulan so bad they would pay the upcharge of $30 to get it. And then they're like, oh, but then you have it forever. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm paying for your streaming service and you put it on there eventually, then I still have it forever. So, and then the downside to that is I buy it to have it on that streaming service that if you chose to get rid of it, I don't have it anymore. As opposed to paying through something like Movies Anywhere or Vudu, where you have it anywhere at all times, as opposed to specifically through the Disney streaming service.
Yeah, it seems like it was a double dip almost.
Yeah, and so it was very split. The Disney fans were very split on that.
Yeah, I
haven't seen it.
I'm not
paying $30 for that. No,
me neither.
Absolutely not.
Me neither.
I'll wait an extra 3 months and just see it for free. Well, not free, but see it for the cost I'm paying for Disney Plus anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to affect things in the future.
I just thought about this, what if COVID happened during the time that Star Wars first came out in '77, or just try to, put it like a modern twist and say, what if Star Wars, this unknown science fiction movie, were to have come out in 2019 or 2020? People might not have been obliged to see it just because they wanted to stay inside.
Yeah.
What if we are in the midst of the next Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and this virus or this new way of life is preventing people from, seeing it, and it just won't get it as much clout. I mean, granted, maybe a little bit later on it might pick up, but back in '77, of course, we weren't alive, but it was just this massive shock that it just resonated with so many people, and people just went out, they clamored, you know, just big lines, just massive people, like totally not respecting social distancing norms as we know it. So just imagine, like, even for independent films or people trying to like get their movie out there, I'm sure it's even tougher now.
Yeah, it's I don't know how
without like a big.
The film industry is gonna hurt.
Oh yes,
it's really gonna.
Film industry, theme park industry.
You know, certain just entertainment, like you got theaters, like, you know, Broadway, you know, other things like that. That's gonna hurt a lot.
Yep, and of course we all know that restaurants are hurting too.
I just saw it. There was an article that was just posted from where we live. I think it's the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I just saw, well, it was an online article, and they were saying estimating 33% of Milwaukee businesses are gonna close in the next 6 months officially. 33%. So if you think about that, now in Florida, everything is open. So some of those places, if they're lucky, can somewhat recoup the cost and hopefully make it in the next year.
Yeah. But they will be in the red for 2020.
So with our governor, what he did, essentially what happens, 33% of that's a lot. So I feel bad. Like, think about it. Like, I was just listening to the Diz Unplugged today, and they were saying, like, think about some of the new restaurants that opened at Disney Springs earlier this year. Some of them closed within 3 months.
That's insane. Yeah.
So anybody who wanted to start a business this year, you may have been like totally, like, this is gonna be insanely tough. And then you think about that for Disney people, like, what happens to people who wanted to, like I said, go down there because they were hoping that they could have a career there, or have like the end of their, like, you know, end of their full career, have like a retirement career down at Disney, or start up a career Disney college program. Like, this really hurt them.
I know.
Like,
took it by storm.
And like the other big news is, like, so there's 2 Wolfgang Pucks down at Disney.
Right. Yeah.
There's the really good, like, main restaurant that everybody absolutely loves, and then there's like the small, tiny, like, breakfast restaurant, like quick service, like very not the best kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, the main one closed. So now all that people have left is this smaller one. And the main one was, everybody seemed to love this one.
Wow. The main one closed.
Well, think about it. Like, if the smaller one costs less for Wolfgang Puck to keep open, we'll close the big one, because you don't want to lose money on the big one, because you're definitely going to lose money real quick on that one.
Sure.
Get some residual income and see what happens then if they close that. Like, where we live, and I don't know how this is in Florida. I mean, Florida has opened everything back up, but, and the other thing too is, like, so when people are talking about Disney and Disneyland, with what the governor in Disneyland is doing, it's really screwing people over. And think about in Florida, like, they're just opened up to full capacity. Everything that, essentially, Disney World is the lifeline for Florida.
Yeah. So,
and when people are like, oh, that's not true, I'm like, what is Florida known for? The one thing, if you can name if you say Florida, what is the one thing generally people go to first?
Retirement homes.
Retirement homes.
No, I was kidding. Disney.
Well, people know Disney.
Yeah, Disney.
And so, anything within a probably, I would say, 20-mile radius of Disney World, any kind of business there is directly impacted by Disney World.
You're right. Yeah, you have all these tourists coming in, not only in the continental U.S., but we're talking about different countries too. Yeah. Like, it's insane the amount of people that come here to enjoy a nice vacation.
Well, think about
around the world.
So think about how many people are going to be affected by this. You have, you know, all the small resorts outside of Disney World that are around there, campsites, Airbnbs for people who don't go there and rent it out for spaces, all the restaurants, like all like the business owners and convention centers and all these things, they're all within Disney World parameters. So, like, that's where Disney World right now, luckily the state of Florida is opening up, so I'm interested to see what's going to happen. So let's get to the main thing.
Yes.
Because I think this is going to be a good question. How do you think Disney World is going to look moving forward? I have some theories, and I'm wondering what your take on them is going to be.
To keep it vague, different. But we're going to dive into that. We're going to dissect it. Don't worry, it's going to be more specific. I foresee Disney being constantly cautious, just because of what the ability of so many people in close proximity to each other can lead to, especially now with us being fully aware of, COVID and any other potential virus that might hit. So I think that they will start to be more lenient on like where you can go on the grounds, but I think their capacity is going to take a hit for a while. Yeah. We're not going to see record-breaking
numbers,
numbers, capacity, things like that. And I just thought of this, like I remember going to Disney in like the late 90s, and granted I was more of a kid, but you could easily walk down Main Street and it would feel like it's like your own little slice of the kingdom. And now like it was getting to a point where it was just insanely busy. And it's weird to think that maybe it's reverting back to that. I mean, not by choice, but just by, safety standards. Because I have a lot of friends who have gone to Disney. I've seen pictures. It seems like almost like a ghost town. Like there's not a lot of people around them, which could be nice. Like Disney has totally dropped the fast passes.
Oh yeah, that's another, just gone.
Right? Isn't that so foreign to think about? Because like you need a fast pass to get on a ride within like 2 hours.
I can't think of in the last 10 years they didn't have a fast pass system.
So like this is completely just out of left field, and like I had to do a double take. I'm like, what? Like there aren't any fast passes? How are you going to get on the ride? Oh, stand in the queue because there's not a lot of people there. Yeah. So that's sort of cool, and I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still gonna exactly, yeah. It's sort of one of those double-edged sword things. Of course, I don't like it more than I like it, but it's like, oh, that's cool that Disney doesn't have to have fast passes, so I don't have to wait 3 hours in line for Flight of Passage. But yeah, in terms of capacity, I think it'll take a hit. We will not be seeing like record-breaking, or I don't think we'll even meet like the Disney standard for the past couple of years for a while. Like I don't even know if we might be talking within the next 5 years.
I have some theories. I'm interested to see what you think. Here's my big theory. This is going to be the rest of our discussion. Here's my big thought. I've talked to my mother-in-law about this for a long time now, and she thinks Disney's going to shoot themselves in the foot. I think they are, but I think in some ways, but in other ways they're not. So we know that Disney has been increasing prices for a while now.
Right.
I'm not saying, nobody says COVID is a good thing. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Disney wants this. I'm not saying that Disney is happy about this. Like, it is an awful thing. People have lost their lives. Families have been hurt. People have lost their jobs. Businesses have gone down. Like, this has been a horrible thing. And I'm not trying to play it as anything less than that. Yeah. But I think inadvertently this gives Disney the opportunity for something they've always wanted, which is they can scale back as far as they need to, and now they can start building up and finding that line, that metric where how can we keep prices higher without having as many people, therefore we don't need to staff as much, but still make sure we make the amount of money that we need. Right?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So they can start pushing like, okay, let's go up to 35% capacity. Can we keep charging the same amount? Or can we start raising the prices a little bit, like we do every single year? Can they find that balance of like, hey, we're hitting our budget line? Because everybody knows the parks are where they make their money.
Yep.
It's the parks fund pretty much everything else. If they can make the money to fund everything they normally do, if that's within their budget and what they allocate the money to that they make off of this, if they can do that with 60% full capacity and go to 60% staffing, or maybe even 50%, go shorter than what you actually need, but get the same amount of money, well, why not? As a business owner, like, it makes sense. It's like, I can have less people on the payroll, have less people in the park, so people get that enjoyable experience, but I don't have as much of a risk because there's not as many people in there.
True.
So they get the same amount of money that they want. It's going to be interesting, I think, and this is where me and my mother-in-law get into a disagreement, where she thinks that Disney's going to cut out the middle class. So it's essentially where it's only going to be not the elites. We're not talking about, you know, like not Steve Jobs, but like multi-millionaires can go. But easily, like, people have to probably be making $80,000 to $100,000 a year, family household income or more, to be able to afford a trip like this.
Right, and maybe not even once a year. Maybe they'd have to, like, say...
Once every few years.
Exactly, like once every 3.
And so I think it's going to be interesting because I think this is going to give Disney the opportunity to find that line.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's a very astute observation, and I would agree with you that now's the time for them to poke and prod and sort of experiment, because you still have, like, people getting that Disney high. Mm-hmm. You have, you know, kids who grew up with Disney who are now, you know, older. They have their own families. They want to go. You have kids who grew up with it who go every year, like myself, where I want to continue to go. So you will have those diehards who will make it a point to go there.
If not once a year, at least every few years.
Right, exactly. It's like that demographic you won't lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad and I also brought this up. It's like you get so many people like moaning and complaining about the increase in prices, but they still go. So it's like, when will it be enough for you to moan and complain and not go? And I don't think Disney will ever reach that point, because I think there will always be a necessity for this type of vacation. But yeah, back to your point, I think Disney will take this opportunity to try to optimize it and maximize their cash flow to where they get the most revenue as possible.
Well, I think the argument against my thought would be people saying, that's a good point, but Disney's lost essentially 6 months worth of business from the parks.
Right.
They need to recoup that money.
Yeah, and when you think about it, sure, when they start like revamping and rescaling and opening up their parks, they're still not going to be making the monthly revenue that they would normally make. So still, it's almost like one step forward but 2 steps back in some categories. So then how can they get it to break even and then eventually, you know, get back to
2 years? I'm betting it's going to probably take at least 2 years to recoup the cost and go back to where they can start.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Because next year is going to, because this year was a wash. Next year is going to be, let's see what we can do. And then the following year, they might hone it in and say, okay, this is what we can do.
And I think they might be able to get away with more things next year just because it's the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. So it's like more of a celebration. And so maybe they can, again, get that extra premium, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what Disney does. But again, they're filled with a bunch of smart people there. So I'm sure that they'll find a way.
I'm interested
to not really enrage people, but to, you know, try to push that envelope a little bit just to see if they can recoup their money quicker than normal.
It's going to be interesting because I don't think we're going to. 10 years ago, I knew how Disney was. It was really good. I mean, granted, it was. In the last few years, it's been insanely busy. But 10 years ago, it was very good.
Yeah.
You know, you still had Fast Pass, but it wasn't nearly as insane as it has been.
No.
After COVID, I think a lot is going to change when we start going back. The new normal, we will never go back to 10 years ago.
No.
Or 15 years ago.
No.
Or even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like an alternate timeline. It's like we'll never experience that again. Like, it was just a dream. It was like a blink of an eye, you know?
I'm going to be interested. I would assume they would bring park hopping back. I
really hope so. I think
they're not doing it right now because they want to try to keep as little moving around.
Yeah, it's containment.
Possible. Yeah. So instead of like, if something were to happen at Epcot, it's not like those people, half of those people went to different parks, and then it's like trying to contain as much as you can. Yeah. But I think it's going to be very interesting moving forward. Do you have any other thoughts on what do you think is going to happen after COVID with Disney? I'm just specifically was talking about the parks. I don't think we know exactly. I'm just saying I think Disney's going to take this opportunity to really scale down on their metrics.
Yeah.
Because that's part of it, right? You have to decrease the costs while still keeping the same income.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of like trimming the fat off, so to speak. You know, it's like just a big garage sale. It's like, okay, what can we get away with selling or not using or not bringing back for this new way of life for entertainment? I don't know. But like a quick thing on the flip side, we're seeing like a huge resurgence in like collectibles. Like when you talk about like trading cards, that market is booming now because you have people who are not really going anywhere, and they're sort of falling back on their nostalgia of like, you know, like pre-COVID, and then so they're starting to accrue stuff. They're starting to collect things. So it's sort of like life has a way of balancing things out. So I found that really interesting, especially recently with the whole Pokemon boom. I've noticed that it's just exponentially rising. So we'll again see that getting balanced back out, but again, I think it will take some time.
We will have to wait and see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was a good discussion. We didn't get too much into the small, minutia details.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even get into how our the queue is going to look with certain rides and like restaurants. This was just an overall thing. If you guys want to see us have more discussions on this, or if we feel like it warrants it, probably in the next 6 months, we'll take a look at it again.
Right, yeah.
But it was a great discussion to talk about what do we think Disney is going to look like in the future. Make sure you comment below, because we would like to hear your thoughts, because everybody's experience with Disney in the past and what they're hoping or thinking in the future it's going to be a great conversation, so definitely comment in the comment section below.
Yes, please do. And don't forget, this is your place to get your Disney fix.
Oh, man. Your place. All right, you guys.
Our place.
You have a good one.
You too.
Peace.